Let's talk a little bit about those systems and processes, because that's probably one of the biggest buzzwords that I always hear contractors talk about.
Yep.
Is I got to get my systems together. I got to get my processes together.
Right.
How do you define a system or a process? Because I think most people use it just as an excuse to not do something.
Yeah. Well, I always tell folks a good system and process has to have a couple components. It has to be written down so that you can easily teach it to somebody else. It has to be clearly defined, and then it has to be replicatable. So a great system, an example of a great system that we use is we have a call intake sheet. And so it's a form that my gals in the office have that when a new customer calls our office and says, hey, we'd like to get an estimate for some painting, they pick up that pad of paper and they go down through that entire list of questions and make sure that we get all of the specifics about their project. And what it does for the people in the office is they don't have to remember all the different things that you have to ask. So what a typical painter will do is they'll answer their phone in the field, like they're either driving the truck or they're on a ladder, like they're out doing stuff. And so like, can you give me your email and I'll send you an email and we'll set something up. And you have no idea how they contacted you, what they want to do. And so it really, it just creates a really great experience for the customer, because then we sound like we know what we're doing. And we have one thing, and we don't have to come back and ask them a second or a third time. Oh, when you called us, I forgot to ask, how did you hear about us?
Right.
So that's it's a great example of a system and a process. I would say systems and processes are about the same thing. Like they're just interchangeable. But it's funny when guys come and spend some time with me in Denver. We do this event called Crank in Denver, and we've done it twice a year since we started this thing. And they, their minds are just like, I can't believe you have so many systems, but they all make sense. Like I didn't learn how to paint really from anybody else. Like that very first time when I went to that franchise experience, I always joke and say, yeah, I learned everything I needed to know about painting over a weekend at a Marriott. Like that was the training that I received. I learned how to paint. I learned how to estimate. I learned how to sell. I learned like in 2 days, right? Like that's just ridiculous. But yeah, so that's kind of, does that answer the question?
It does 100%. I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into that. So the first thing you talked about, which this is my favorite thing that you said about it, was it has to be written down.
Yeah.
Why does writing it down actually make it legit or help it? I mean, what does the fact of putting pen to paper do for having a system or a process?
Well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever played the game telephone? Okay. So when you start something, you tell somebody, I went to the store to buy a can of Coke. And it goes around the circle, and then it becomes, I went to King Soopers to buy a soda. Like it just changes, right? So if you don't have it written down, it doesn't get done the same exact way. And the important things about systems is that you do it step by step. We don't skip a step. And I don't know about you, but I'm not you get something in the mail, like from Amazon, and you have to put it together. And if you don't follow actually the directions, like you always have extra parts. And so something's not going to work right. Right.
Yeah.
So my wife is an engineer and she's going to read every single step and everything. And I'm just going to I can figure this out. Right. So that's why systems and processes need to be written down so that they can be duplicated each and every time. I always tell new guys. So we talk about our systems when I'm doing my interviews. In fact, we're in the process of hiring right now. And I was telling somebody, and one of the systems that gets overlooked a lot is making sure that we cover everything when we're prepping off a room. And so if you forget to take our masker and put paper to tape and cover the little, the door handle, let's just say, really simple example, right? It takes me 1 second to pull and tape it and put it on top of that handle. It takes you about 1 second, just easy math. We're going to say it takes about 1 second to do that. Now, if I don't do that and I just paint over the top of the door and then we get those little sprinkles on the handle,
Mhm.
Well, it might take me like 20 seconds to clean that thing off. Not like the end of the world, right? But if you think about those numbers I just told you, it's 20 times longer to do it that second way if you missed that one little step. And there's so many things along the process of painting a room that if you don't do things right, that it's just going to take you that much longer.
Mhm.
So it's all about efficiency.
So when you, and this is kind of like the first time I ever like learned the effect of this is hearing about when somebody opens up McDonald's, they pretty much have a dictionary of the
Correct.
temperature the room has to be and where the light switches are. Like
Yeah.
it's to the T. So when you hire somebody, how much faster does this onboarding process happen when you already have everything written down?
Yeah. Well, if you think about, most painters or most guys in construction,
Mm-hmm.
right? Most guys, we'll just call the construction industry, right?
Sure.
Most people, when they hire somebody, the only way they want to hire somebody is they want to steal somebody from somebody else. We want to pull this guy in, and because I don't know how to train, right? It's a long process. So we want to go steal somebody from over there. But the problem is now you're getting whatever bad habits that guy has from over there. And he's going to be like, well, I've been doing this for like 8 years. How can you tell
Okay.
me what to
Yeah.
do? Right. And so we really like to take guys that have like zero experience and take them from ground zero to do our process. And when you have a process, then it's that much faster and easier to train that person. Right. So if what
Mm-hmm.
most guys do, if they hire somebody that has no experience, they'll be like, hey, go paint that bedroom. And then like 3 hours later, they come back and check on them and they're still working and it's like, it's a mess. Right. And then they're mad. Have you ever heard of the book E-Myth?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
So E-Myth was really my, impetus for all of this. I probably read it maybe in my second year of business, but it took me 12 times to read that book. And so
Okay.
I knew the importance of systems and processes to make sure that it was duplicated. He talks about McDonald's in there.
A
I
lot.
mean,
Yeah.
it's huge. It speeds up the training process. We have
Mhm.
everything that we do documented on a document called the painter manual. So we actually have a
Mhm.
painter manual and an owner manual. Owner manual covers everything from the office to sales process to project management and everything that's not like putting paint on the wall kind of stuff.
Mhm.
It speeds up the process. When a normal guy hires a painter and they've got to train them, they'll talk about having a master painter, right? It takes them years to get a guy to be a master painter because they don't have any systems and they do anything under the sun. I mean, you've seen the trucks, right? We
Mhm.
do residential, interior, exterior, commercial. I'll paint your dog if they're not moving. Like literally they'll
Yeah.
do, right? They'll
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
anything and everything under the sun if you'll pay them money. Well, when you have a system, like for us, like we only paint interiors. I don't stain anything. I don't do drywall work. We just paint. And so it takes me about, depends on the guy or gal, but it takes me 30 to 60 days to get somebody fully trained on being a prep. And if you talk to most painters, they'll tell you that, 60, 70% of what we do is prep. Yeah. So it
Mhm.
takes me, let's say the average 45 days to get somebody to be a productive um, person in my company that is contributing and we are making money from them. If you didn't have that system and you hired somebody that was not experienced, it would take you 3 or 4 months.
Yeah. There was, I think it's Trainual,
Yep.
but which is like effectively a company that lets you document your systems, and then it
Just
helps
took
you
our
out with
rabbit
that.
though. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they had a really good way of explaining it because they went up and they did the whole go sit with Gary Vaynerchuk for $10,000 for an hour, and they went to Gary and they said, look, like, how do we sell this? Like, we're trying to go to small businesses
I think I
and
heard that
sell
interview
them.
actually.
Yeah, and I love that one because he said you got to reposition it because he's like, my dad would never spend money on this, but as soon as you tell my dad that he is losing money because it's taking people longer to train them, he's like, that's when, because as a small business, you think very short term. You don't think about the long term effects. You think
100%.
short.
Yes.
So with the training, you go, well, shoot, I can't spend time to train somebody right now, but you forget that on the back end, it pays off tenfold, but you got to suck it up in the now.
And the other side of that for us, this is what we've experienced. If I take somebody with zero experience and I teach them our trade, they're more apt to stay with me long-term. They're way more loyal, because if you just go and steal the guy from down the road and I'm going to pay him $1 more.
Yeah.
What do you think when another guy comes up to him and says, hey, I'm going to give you $1 more? What happens?
Yeah. They're gone.
Right? So we invest in these guys and gals, and then they stay with us long-term. My project manager has been with me since he didn't even know how to pick up a paintbrush. And he's the one that's helped me create a lot of our more recent processes and systems. And now he's been with me for like 6 years.
Yeah, there's a guy named John DeJulius. You ever heard of him before? He's a big customer service guy. Pretty much he has a few different hair salons. He's up in Cleveland. And he said he had fired his old staff, and he will no longer hire hairstylists or estheticians that have experience. They only hire them directly out of school, because otherwise they come in with all this, I know how to cut hair, I know how to do this. And he's like, you don't understand. We're not cutting hair. We're here for the customer service side of things. We're here to make people feel comfortable. Then the haircut is secondary.
Right.
So he switched it around. So he does a lot of the same stuff that you're talking about, where instead of trying to find somebody who can fill a hole right now because you don't have to sit there and train them, right, you go find somebody, you have a training process, but then it pays off down the road every single time. So that's super cool. So sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's a long-term mentality. It's crock pot cooking versus microwave cooking, right?
Yeah, that's totally, the taste is way different, but one's going to take 8 hours and one's going to take 80 seconds.
Right. And be all rubbery.
Yeah. You never know what you're going to get.
That's popcorn.
Yeah, you don't want to slow cook that.